Hey everybody, this month's episode of the Rado Talks To podcast is brought to you by Elf Creek Games and their upcoming Kickstarter title, The Clocks of Hickory Docks. I've already talked about this a few times on the podcast. I've read the rules, but now a prototype is on its way to me, and I'm hoping I'll be able to show it to you before too terribly long. As I understand it, the campaign is going to be launching in early 2023, and I don't think this is going to be one you want to miss, folks. The components look really stellar. I think Elf Creek is going to knock it out of the park. And if you want to know more about it, you can go to clocks.rado.com to sign up for know when the campaign is actually going to launch. Although you'll be hearing more about it from me in the coming months. Okay.
And hello there, how are you? This is a very interesting experiment for me because I am recording this episode of the podcast on the road. We are here in Jen's and my new 20-year-old Winnebago, and Jen, we have stopped. Where are we? We are in Oregon. We are in a little town called Florence on the coast. Jen saw several galleries she thought would be very interesting to check out. And so I figured, what the heck, let me go on ahead and set up the mic and the little camera and start trying to hit the latest episode of the podcast. We'll see how far I get. And this is also an experiment. It's like 80 degrees in here. I just turned on the air conditioner. All the windows are closed. I can already start to feel it cool down. I don't know if you folks can hear that because I've also applied noise suppression, something I generally don't have to do at home. Let's listen in silence for a moment. In theory, you can barely hear that at all, but it's definitely helping cool me down. And, folks, otherwise, this is just a regular episode of the podcast. I'm going to be doing some game-related stuff, then Jen will show up for some game-related. I think she has one game-related question, and then we'll do the personal Q&A section. The only problem is my internet is being provided by Jen's phone here, and it turns out Xfinity Mobile throttles your, the hotspot. So, the internet is very fast on Jen's phone. It's not fast on my browser in case I need to look something up. So, that might be a bit tricky. But otherwise, I think we are ready to go right after this. Okay, everybody, let's get going. I've got my Word document set up. It's getting cooler by the second. I very much appreciate that. And let's start with a question from Ben, who says that I've talked on the show about filling Fedex freight boxes to send games to Dice Tower West, the convention in Las Vegas. Do I think that the Fedex freight boxes would work well if I moved back to Europe instead of having my games moved by a moving company? I don't know. Probably not. International shipping is ridiculous. Anybody who has backed any kind of crowdfunding game recently for the last year knows just how absolutely insane shipping has got. These FedEx freight boxes are amazing for continental U.S. shipping. I don't even know if I don't know what would happen if I tried to ship something to Alaska or Hawaii. But shipping stuff overseas, I can't imagine that would be even remotely feasible. Plus, we have a bunch of other stuff to ship back too, so probably better just to get a half a freight container and just suck it up and let it go really slow on the long trip from the Pacific Northwest back to England, which we will someday do. I have to admit, I'm guessing. I haven't looked at it yet, but based on my understanding of shipping, just even shipping internationally to Canada, things just so explode in cost as to not be viable. It's interesting. When we were in Malta, we did seriously consider trying to ship our stuff through international post back to the U.S. because Maltese shipping worldwide is incredibly cheap. It's one of the biggest problems Jen had when we moved back to the States is running her Etsy glass store. It was so cheap to send any place in the world from Malta, but from here, it gets pretty expensive very quickly. So, no, I think it's a great idea, Ben, but probably wouldn't necessarily work. So we'll have to do it the old-fashioned way. Okay, Dieter has 5 questions. Number 1, how would my top 5 board games look if I could only include the base game and no expansion? That is a very good question, Dieter. And to answer that question, we are going to have to go to the very, very, very slow internet. Let me see if I can bring that up, if I remember how to do that. Boom. And, right, I need to go to games.rado.com. And that should take me to a list. Let's see how long this takes. That wasn't too bad. Of course, yeah, when your internet is throttled, it's going to be fine for text or email. It's just not going to be good for anything else. So, what did you ask about? I've totally forgotten, Dieter, my top 5 board games. My top 5 board games of all time are Trois, Agricola, Gloomhaven, Shadowrun Crossfire, and Pandemic. If I had to take expansions out, I don't know that Pandemic would be in my number one spot. It would certainly have a very, very important nostalgic place in my heart, but there's so much amazing stuff. Starting with On the Brink and In the Lab and all the offshoots. It's all the crazy amount of variety that Pandemic has that puts it. I don't think it would even be my top 10 necessarily. I have to look. But hey, we're here. I can look. But anyway, Shadowrun Crossfire, I have the expansion. Even if I didn't have it, nothing would change. Gloomhaven, I have the expansion. Nothing would change even if I don't have it. Agricola. Maybe Agricola would drop 1 or 2. Maybe. I don't know. I think it would probably still hold. Twa, I have the Ladies of Twa expansion, but again, that rating is independent. So, Pandemic jumps out, which means Shadowrun Crossfire becomes my number 1 game of all time. Wow. And Castles of Burgundy pushes its way into my top 5. Now, when I get the super duper deluxe new edition of Castles of Burgundy, that might be pushing its way up anyway, because it's always been one of the greatest games of all time. Now it's going to have one of the greatest productions of all time, too. But it also sits where it sits, irregardless of any expansion content. So it could only go up. So yeah, a Pandemic would come out. A Castles of Burgundy would push its way up. Definitely. Agricola might, but I don't think so. I think, well, certainly the original version of Agricola had so much content in the box. The new revised edition of Agricola, maybe not, because there are fewer cards, especially if you're playing only 2-player. So I could imagine Agricola might drop down a few knocks as well with the new revised edition, but the original wouldn't. And if it did knock down, that would bring Nations into the number 5 slot, which is pretty cool too. I can't complain about that. So that was, I have to say, a very interesting thought exercise. Now, let me see if I can get word back here. Here we go. Okay, question number 2 from Dieter. What's my favorite expansion of all time and why? That's a good one. We got to go back to the browser. Back to the browser, and I got to look up all my expansions, which I have not ranked. So that's going to be tough. Normally, I rely on my ranking to make it really easy to find all this stuff. Let me see. How do I make this appear? Okay, boom, there's the browser. Let's see, let's just go to ranked.rado.com. This will take a little bit. This is going to take a bit longer because there's pictures of all the game boxes. But then after, this is going to give me the boxes. I will then have to switch some stuff around. Oh my gosh, this is taking forever. All right, it'll show up eventually. There we go. Okay, so I want to filter. I don't need board games. I need expansions that I'm looking at. And it's not owned, but pre-ordered. Every expansion or thing that feels like an expansion to me, I've labeled as pre-ordered. Which, if you don't know why, go to faq.rado.com. I've got a whole thing. So anyway, here we go. These are all the expansions I own, and there are 645 of them. I am not going to look through all 645 of them, but let's sort by what Board Game Geek says. Right. Based on geek rating, and see if that will help. If they're, let's see, what comes to the top? Wow, of all the expansions I own, it looks like the number 1 is a Wingspan expansion, the European expansion, which is certainly a good one, but Lord's War, right, let's see, Pandemic on the Brink, Dominion, ooh, right off the bat, coming in very, very high, again, according to Board Game Geek rankings, is Feast for Odin, or Norwegians. That's a good one, because without that Norwegian expansion, I wouldn't keep Feast for Odin. It really solved my fundamental problems with the base game as a 2-player game. So Feast for Odin or Norwegians is a strong candidate. But so is Lost Ruins of Arnak, the Expedition Leader. Again, I don't think I would have kept Arnak without the Expedition expansion either, because it adds so much. It completes the game, basically. It's one of those types of expansions. What else? Obviously, so many Dominion things. Zolkin stuff, Orleans stuff, a lot of Pandemic stuff, a lot of Galaxy Trucker stuff, German Railroads, a lot of Marvel Champion stuff, of course. The Seventh Continent. You know what? Those 2 first ones, those are going to be really strong. Oh, and then another one, Grizzled, is another one where, okay, I couldn't do the Grizzled without the expansion at your orders, because it's a terrible 2-player game, and then suddenly becomes a great 2-player game with the expansion. So those are all valid, but honestly, I think I'm gonna go with Feast of Norwegians, or Feast of Odin's or Norwegians. Not only because it just did what I hoped it would do, but because they did it in a way that totally surprised me. My problem with the game was there was a little bit too much random swinginess with the item weapon draws, harpoons and stuff like that. And I thought they would just do a simple thing of, let's just make it a market. There's 5, you pick one instead of drawing randomly. But they did it a much cooler way, which I talked about in my run through. So I will give it to Feast for Odin the Norwegians, the greatest board game expansion of all time. Big words. Okay, let's come back to Word for Dieter's question. Number 3, what mediocre games are fixed with an expansion? Well, obviously I just talked about a couple, but I can't say in good conscience that Feast for Odin is a mediocre game. That is certainly not the case. But its 2-player experience was less than ideal without that expansion. Alrighty. Okay, I'm gonna have to go back for both of these. Let's see. Let's go back again. I still have that list of all those expansions up. So, an expansion that fixed a mediocre game. Well, you know what? That's probably going to be closer to the end of the list, right? Because these are all high-ranking things. I mean, what's a mediocre game? What game do I have that's mediocre? Oh, you know what? No, you know what I need to do? I need to actually go to my actual game list then, which we still have over here. And I just need to go down to the bottom of my list, things that I rate relatively low, and see which ones are kept only because I have the expansion I wouldn't have kept otherwise. So if I go down to the bottom to my high 6s and my low 7s. Let's see here. And again, I mean, if it's a mediocre game, I don't think it exists. I don't think I would keep a mediocre game just because an expansion, put it over the top. But, I mean, I don't think I would have kept a Rattle Battle Grab the Loot if I didn't get that expansion that really did some important stuff. But it's not a mediocre game. I mean, what's actively mediocre that somehow an expansion totally fixed? Honestly, Dieter, I don't think I'm going to find that, in all honesty. Just scrolling through this list right now. I mean, yeah, because... can an expansion really have that much impact? I don't think so. I think, Dieter, it doesn't exist. That's what I'm going to go with. But then, if I come back to your next question, am I more excited for a completely new game or an expansion of a game that I already have? Strictly speaking, I'm more excited for a new game, except for one weird little thing, because of a quirk of circumstance. A new expansion for a game I love means I get to get that game out and play it again. Normally, we have so many games we love, but, after we played them and filmed them, they go on the shelf and start collecting dust because there's so many new games that are coming along. But a new expansion lets me go back and visit something I love that I've been jonesing for. I'll probably go with expansion. If it wasn't for Rado Runs Through, though, I would definitely prefer new games over expanding existing games. Because I would get to spend more time with my existing games without having to use an expansion as an excuse. Alrighty, and finally, Dieter says, for which game do I wish they would come with an expansion in the future? Let's go back again. Let's go way back when to the browser and look at my big list of games. Something that doesn't have an expansion that I hope comes with one soon. Right. Okay, let me get back to the list. Here we go. Well, you know what? I couldn't say something that ranks high, obviously, because if it ranks so high, it must be doing okay. So I should say down here in the lower range, something that, maybe something below an 8. Pretty much anything with an 8 is an 8.1 versus an 8.7. They're both 8s to me. It's just really so I can rank things numerically. Let's go into the 7s. And what do I want to see desperately with an expansion? It would push it up into 8. Cryo is excellent. Cryo definitely needs some expansion content. That's a good one. And, what else? No, I don't think these would be pushed up with an expansion. Some of them have expansions, I just haven't gotten them yet. Wow. You know what I would love K2, if it needs an expansion to do this, something that would fix the silly rule it has where, the game ends as soon as somebody, there's a certain threshold. And, you could basically end and win the game, and if the game had just gone one more turn, you would die and lose. That's always bugged me. I'd love an expansion to fix that for K2. They did fix it in some of the spin-offs. Let's see here. You know what? Okay, no, there's no choice about it. 100%. If there could be one game I could say, designer, come back and expand this for me, it is 100% Star Trek Expeditions from Reiner Knizia. Because what I want is Reiner Knizia to come up with an expansion that is evergreen, that just like kind of you mix and match different Star Trek tropes and ideas and settings, and every time you play, you get a new away mission on a new planet with new problems to solve. Star Trek Expedition desperately needs that, and so there's no choice. I mean, I definitely keep it because it's a really great co-op, but it could be so much better with an expansion. So I think that is an easy one for me. Okay, cool. Then let's go on to Joseph, who wonders, which would I say is the better gaming experience, a perfect deck builder or bag builder? Are there any deck builders that could be improved by changing to bag builders or vice versa? Joseph was watching my old Orleans video, and that made him ask the question. Well, the simple answer is, of course, bag building is superior. Hey, you know what? I'm going to pause here for a second. You won't even know, but it's nice and cool in here, and I'm literally burning gasoline to run this air conditioner, so I'll be right back. You won't even notice I'm gone, folks. Although now with the air conditioner off, can you hear it? Did you ever hear it? I'm really curious. This is all experimental, folks. With the air conditioner off, or the generator off to run the air conditioner, you're going to hear more road noise because we're parked right on a main street here in beautiful Florence, Oregon. Anyway, though, back to so I was going to say bag builders, of course, for one simple reason. It is so much easier to shuffle them. It is a real pain in the patootie at the beginning of, your first few shuffles of Dominion are just kind of a pain. You don't have very many cards in there. You just kind of can't riffle shuffle yet, which I enjoy riffle shuffling. And you're always, no matter how many cards are in that deck, I am always worried that they are clumping together. And what do you know? Those two cards that I played that played really well, they just happen to show up in a hand later on because I didn't shuffle well enough. A bag builder eliminates all that. Now, to be fair, though, it's interesting you mentioned Orleans. Orleans is a great bag builder, but it was so improved by its sequel, Altiplano, as a bag builder, because Orleans had the one big mistake that said, hey, after an end of a round, throw everything you drew out of the bag back in. That is actively bad. That is poor design on Orleans' part, which is why Altiplano is superior, that you keep drawing out of that bag in Altiplano till you empty it out, just like you keep drawing cards from a deck in a deck builder till you empty them out. So, but anyway, yeah. Is there any other thing to consider here? I will admit, I really do enjoy riffle shuffling cards. And I know it drives some people nuts when I do it on live run-throughs, or, because, they feel the cards getting dinged and nicked, but I mean, it's just a fun act. But no, I mean, there's no choice about it. Just from the randomization factor alone, a bag builder is so superior. I guess the downside is it's hard to put cards into it. You can't really do cards in a bag builder. So here's what we give up. We increase the randomization, which is great, but we suffer for having more simple components. They're just going to be dice or cubes or chits with one or two actions on them, whereas cards can be big and rich and robust and have all kinds of cool things, can't they? I think I just talked myself out of it. It's a tough choice. They're both excellent. If I could only ever play bag builders or deck builders, actually, now that I think about it, no. I'm gonna about face. I'm gonna 180 and say nope. It would have to be deck builders because a deck of cards can be as simple as a deck of chits or dice or whatever, or it can be really rich and complex. And so that is the final solution: deck, and just have to live with sometimes they don't shuffle as well as you might hope. Alrighty, Joseph continues. What is my least favorite game mechanism? And what makes me enjoy it? I think in the past you've mentioned, I don't care for roll to resolve, pick up and deliver. Feel free to talk about other mechanisms instead. Well, you're right to mention both of those. And I feel like I have talked about. A pick up and deliver game, one of my least favorites, can be improved. And it's really something we've realized in recent years. It's not so much the pick up and deliver. It's the fact that pick up and deliver has a lot of board traversal. And board traversal is really what Jen and I often find just like kind of boring busy work. Hey, wait a minute. Jen's phone just beeped at me. What was that? We're going to pause for a sec. We'll be right back. That was Jen's sister checking in on us. We left our place a few days ago and just went out into the wide world in this RV. They were like proud parents sending their children out into the world, and she was just calling to check, see how we're doing. When Jen gets back, Jen will give her a call. Anyway, though, what were we talking about? Oh, yeah. So the problem with board traversal is it often feels like busy work. It feels like there's nothing particularly interesting. It is just a task I have to complete to be able to achieve what I really want to do when I get to my final destination. And I would rather spend more time doing the fun part instead of the boring driving part. Ironic that I should mention that because Jen and I are... But, driving this thing around through the Redwood Forest in Northern California was wonderful. Although not always, man. We had some real terrifying scares in the last couple of days, too. Anyway, though. So... to fix roll to resolve, to fix pick up and deliver, you need to make that board traversal interesting. Best way to do it is say, hey, you know what? Board traversal is really immaterial. You kind of teleport around. In which case, well, is it really even pick up and deliver anymore? Still kind of. Like Agricola does a great job of this. In that, there's all these roads all over the place, but you can travel along the longest road in a single move the same way you could travel along the shortest road. So stuff like that, I think, is a big deal. And make it more puzzly. Runebound, I saw it when I was going through the list earlier, is a great example. We enjoyed traveling around the world because every round you roll these terrain dice, and it's a little mini puzzle of how best to use them to travel around the world. So pick up and deliver, make the traversal, make the traveling around the world interesting and fun as opposed to a chore you have to do so that you can get to the interesting fun stuff. So often games fail to do that. Roll to resolve. Yes, the most important thing about roll to resolve to make me totally okie day, 100% hunky dory with it is usually, hey, we figure out what we want to do, and then we roll the dice to see if it'll let us happen. And you know what game? And I'll say, boy, we really hate the roll to resolve in this game. People say, but there's so many ways you can mitigate the dice. And yeah, but the problem is, in most games you have to commit whatever resources, reroll or special powers, whatever it is, before the roll. And that's weak sauce. What you want as a designer to do is say, roll the dice, and oh, that's crappy. I will now spend the resources to change these dice after the case. Because what always sucks is in a roll to resolve, this roll is incredibly important. I will spend 15 extra gold so that I'm rolling 3 extra dice to up my chances of doing whatever it is I need to do, and now I'm going to bankrupt myself. And then I roll, and oh my gosh, what do you know? I got exactly what I needed, and if I'd saved all that money, it would have been the exact same result. That is a garbage feeling that just makes me hate a game when it puts me in that situation. There is nothing fun about that at all. Now, if it were like, oh, I'm going to take a chance, I'm going to roll. Oh, the dice failed me. Right. Now, after the dice fail me, I've got a tough choice. Do I live with these results? Or do I spend the resources, those precious resources that I'm desperate to use for other things, to fix the dice? Suddenly, roll to resolve becomes another interesting choice, as opposed to just this crazy, crappy, Hail Mary swingy stuff. So that's how you fix both of those. Very easy to fix. Well, I say that. That's not fair. I mean, game design is, if it were easy, everybody would do it. And you're right. I mean, there are other things I could talk about. But, I mean, those are really two of my big ones. And I don't think I've gone into that much detail about how to fix both of them. So I'll live with that, Joseph. And if you want more, you can ask again next month by, as always, folks, send your questions to questions@rado.com. Okay, what do we got now? After hearing many hours of my content, Joseph has noted that I use a specific word a lot. Sundry. I say, all I can think of now is geek and sundry. But apparently I say and sundry a lot. It's highly possible that Joseph is mishearing. I've never heard this phrase until I started listening and watching your videos. I'm curious how this phrase came into your vocabulary, and why do you think it's used expression so often? I don't know. I was unaware that I used it that often. I had no idea. I'm sure now that you pointed it out, I will notice it all the time. What is the origin of sundry? I'm sure it's just something that probably my parents said, and I picked it up from them. I'm sorry, man. Hopefully my other questions were good, because I don't have a good answer for that one. I think it's just something I've said my whole life. What I say? I always say various and sundry things, which is completely superfluous. Various things is fine. Sundry things is fine. I mean, actually, now that makes when I say something various and sundry, what is the definition of sundry? Because to me, it's synonymous with variety and various. Let's very, very, very slowly do a search. Wait a minute. Is the all right? Okay. So we've done the search, and sundry. of various kinds, several. Various items not important enough to be mentioned individually. Yeah. To say various and sundry is completely superfluous, and I should clearly try to get that out of my lexicon, out of my vocabulary, because I'm just wasting my time and yours, Joseph, and I apologize. Okay, let's see here. Let's move on to the next bit. Martin wonders. It's starting to heat up in here, folks. I might have to turn the AC back on. Did I close all the windows? Pretty sure I did. But hey, it's an RV. That's the nature of things. All right, Martin wonders, did I keep up with have I kept up with the World Series of Board Gaming in Vegas? I'm aware of it, but no. It's interesting. They actually asked if I wanted to go. I mean, you may have noticed, I think Tom Vassell went, Chris George went, probably some other people. Did Before You Play, did they go? Anyway, though, they asked, I said, no, it's okay. I wish them well, but I have no particular interest to sit around and watch a bunch of people play board games. Which is what it is. I mean, I don't think it's a particularly compelling spectator sport. And that's ironic that I say that because my entire fortune, such as it is based on the fact that you folks like to watch me play games. But that's because I don't think it's ever fun to watch anybody play games unless they do what I do, which is articulate the thought process and invite me in and let me know what's going on so I can get a better understanding of the game. I don't think they're going to be doing that at the World Series of Board Gaming. So I respectively declined, and I wish them well. And I guess it's going well, but it's just not of any great interest to me. Martin then continues, on the same topic, it seems like it's a decent jump in organized tournaments akin to early esports. Yeah, no, it's great. I hope it succeeds. I hope it takes off. I hope they come back stronger next year. I mean, I hope it eventually gets coverage by whatever, the ESPN3 is. Because, hey, it's only good for the hobby. Good on them if they've been successful so far. Matthew says, do I have any plans to do a run-through for the new Star Wars Pandemic game? Yes, I do. The new Star Wars Pandemic game is sitting not on my front porch because we had a neighbor go and pick stuff up. So it is sitting in our garage along with whatever else has shown up. If it had shown up like a day earlier, I would have played it on the road, and that would have been amazing because for longtime fans of the show, they know Jen and I, our first introduction to Modern Designer board games was playing Pandemic on a road trip in our old Mazda Bongo. And how appropriate would it be in our new deluxe RV that we've got? Again, 20-year-old Winnebago that we got at a super, super discounted price. Everybody we've told on the road who's... there is no way you paid that little for it. I mean, we got a super deal, a screaming deal on this thing. But anyway, it would have been so perfect to have the new Pandemic. So sadly, though, it didn't show up in time. I actually thought about going to a Target and buying one, but I couldn't in good conscience because I knew one was waiting for me at home. So yes, I fully expect I'll be covering it in November, Matthew. Okay. Nelson says, I noticed the show preview thumbnail highlights I noticed the show preview thumbnail highlights the question for the episode. Oh, highlights a question from the episode. Was that intentional or was you? No, that is one. It was not intentional at first. I mean, it used to be for the first, whatever, 4 years maybe of doing this podcast, I wasn't putting them on YouTube. And then when I eventually said, okay, I will go back retroactively and put them all on YouTube, I just made the what do you call it? The banner, right? There it is, right there. I think, yeah. The Rado talks through. Jen made a new logo, and that's all it is for like the first, 60 episodes of the podcast. It's just that for the entire time. And then only recently I thought, why am I doing that? People who actually, consume this podcast on YouTube, I'm sure would like to see me talking. And it's like, oh, I at the same time that I turn on this microphone that's right in front of me, I can turn on a camera too. So I only recently started doing that. And I've also recently, within just this year, started doing thumbnails on YouTube for like the final thoughts and for these podcasts that kind of feature me in a big way. Starting out, I always wanted to minimize me. I never wanted my channel to be about me. I always wanted to be about the games, which is why my thumbnail game was always just, hey, take the cover art from the game. Make it about the game, not about me. But you know what, folks? That's not the way YouTube works. People click on human faces. So I finally broke down and said, okay, I will start just taking stills, freeze frames from the videos. And so I figured, what the heck, I might as well do it for here too. And I think the first couple I did, I'm trying not to, get a free frame on, have my face frozen in some weird spot. Just something where I look like I'm happy and smiling, or, I don't know, furrowing my brow, or something that's cute or, fun to look at. And the first couple, I don't think I even paid attention what was on there. But then I noticed there was an episode that got more views than others. And I'm like, what is different about this episode? And I saw I had highlighted in the thumbnail a very interesting question, probably the coolest question of the entire episode. And that's when I realized, I should be highlighting these things as I go, and I should purposely take one that actually, for people who actually look at he's talking. Oh, is he going to talk about that? Yeah, I guess I'll listen. So it is a purposeful thing I'm doing. I could probably be kind of scientifically trying to get, the pitch perfect, but I'm still kind of mostly playing it by ear. But yes, you are right. It is not by accident that is happening now. Because I'm playing the YouTube game just a little bit. All right. Nelson then asks, what games do I currently have in my collection that wouldn't be there if I didn't play it with some sort of house rule? Imagine mostly rules related to Take That. And what are some of those house rules? Maybe one simple example, still in your collection, could be Raise Arcana, and your house rule keeping, getting rid of the stupid elvish bow. I did not keep Raise Arcana. That's a good question. Let me go back once more to the big list of games, right? Do I still have it up here? Yes. Yes, I do, I think. All right. And so, again, it's probably going to be something on the lower end, right? Something I've house ruled. I mean, I don't know. I tend to, if I need a house rule, I tend to dismiss it. It is very rare that I say, hey, I fixed it. Oh, I'll tell you one. It's easy. Legacy. Pandemic Legacy Season 1 and Season 0. I keep those in my collection. If I could only own one version of any Legacy, it would be, or any Pandemic, it would be Pandemic Legacy Season 1. Because I did the work and came up with, I think, a really solid home variant that turns Pandemic Legacy into a replayable ongoing game. And I did the same thing for Pandemic Legacy Season 0 as well. So those are the obvious choices. That's not really what you're talking about, though. That was me making my own homebrew version of the game to keep the game around. But I'm very proud of them. I think they work really well. Geez. There's probably some, but I'm just kind of tiptoeing through the tulips here. And I'm not really seeing anything that's like, okay, well, you got to play it this way or not at all. I know there are some, though. Oh, Time Stories is a really good example. Time Stories is another game where the two-player implementation of the original Time Stories was so terrible that I had to come up with my own homebrew. It was kind of based on something that somebody else did, and then I kind of built on it. So the original white cycle of Time Stories, we played through it from start to finish, but only because of my homebrew variant. I would not have played past the first one if it wasn't for that. So there's a few. Probably not exactly what you were thinking, but still. Hopefully that was of some interest. Number 2, says Nelson, why does Jen not play Marvel Champions anymore? You know what? Jen just got back. I'll have to ask her. Let's pause. All right, I asked Jen if I could have another half an hour, and she said, no, the road beckons. So I'm just going to finish this, and then we'll have to pause, and I'll have to reset up, and I assume it'll still be the same background later. But anyway, the question was from Nelson, why does Jen not play Marvel Champions anymore? Is there something about the game that changed for Jen? Yes, 100%. And I've mentioned this, and it's really kind of disappointing to me that the longer Marvel Champions goes, the more complicated it gets. Hi, Annie Pie.
Hi, everybody.
Jen just got back. She got some very nice stuff. But this is about games, not about other stuff. So Jen's just going to check her phone. Your sister called, want to know how things are going. Okay. So it's just gotten progressively more and more complex. The original 5 characters and 3 villains who come in the box are perfect in terms of a lot of variety, a lot of really great thematic verisimilitude, which is something I appreciate that they're also walking away from more and more, but just the right level of, okay, there's really interesting, deep decisions to make. These characters all play really uniquely, but they don't throw 50 billion keywords at you that you have to remember and make the bad guy system more and more complex and throw more and more really crazy event cards at you. I understand why they're doing it because they are making more and more content for people who really love the game. And if people play the game enough, they need to have a deeper, richer, more complex game. That's fine. I can't begrudge them that. But Jen says, okay, this is where I get off. She really enjoyed playing Captain Marvel. She really enjoyed playing She-Hulk. She really enjoyed, who else has she played? I think she played Captain America, who is also still fairly simple. But then, we got into later on, oh, you're really going to love Quicksilver. That's going to be really, really cool for you because you get to do so many things. And like, oh, too complicated. No. And, whoever we fought, maybe it was Kang. That was a bad idea. Kang is so complicated. That's the fundamental problem with the game. And they have to do it because they have to, the rabid hardcore fan base that keeps that game going, they demand more complexity. I don't think the game needs to be more complex. The base game showed that it can be deep. I would rather they go deeper rather than more complex. But ultimately, it is easier to make a game more complex than more deep. And they got a lot of content to produce. So that is the problem why I think every time since those first few games when we played, when Jen's like, wow, this is really good. I really enjoy it. I think, I don't know if I'll ever get Jen to come back, but hope springs eternal because I'm still enjoying it. That's another thing waiting for me back home. As I understand it, the new X-Men stuff showed up, which I'm less excited about, but still, because I'm not really a big fan of the X-Men. But, okay, so Nelson, we are going to stop halfway through because it is time to hit the road. We are going to be stopping at a boondocking place. A very nice lady will be putting us up. It'll cost us $15 for the night, but she's about 2 hours away from here as we continue heading north. So it's time to hit the road. We're all rested up. So I'm just going to go on ahead and hit this right here, and we'll pick up later. Okay, everybody, let us continue now that we have reached our next port of call, a lovely Boondockers welcome site on the west coast of Oregon. One of, there's like less than a half dozen of them, I think. And we are very, very happy with this one. So, when last we left our hero, Nelson was asking questions. Oh, and his third question I thought was actually really good, so I moved it down to the Jen section. So, Nelson, we'll get back to you when Jen gets on camera in a bit. Okay, Shannon was listening to my recent R&R episode where we did top 10 roll and writes, myself and Roel. And Shannon was surprised that my number one barely cracks my top 50 games of all time. Granted, top 50 is a high bar with the sheer number of games you've played, but considering my frequently professed love of the genre, Shannon is surprised that that's as high as a roll and write has gotten. Are there really no roll and writes that could compete with the likes of Circle the Wagon, Cloud Age, or Elysium for space higher on the list? What do you think it would take for the genre to ascend? Is there enough design space there to do it at all? And I think that's actually the interesting point. Is there enough design space? I mean, I am a huge fan. And the thing I think, which I've only recently come to understand, oh my gosh, my hair is such a mess. Living on the road, need a hat or something. Not that you can hear that, so not even going to worry about it. You YouTubers can enjoy my hair. I desperately need a haircut. Anyway, though, and a shave. Shave and a haircut. 2 bits, please.
Hold on. We've got a hat.
Oh, wait. Jen is apparently going to go grab a hat. Jen has emerged from the bedroom of the...
A good 10
Oh, there we go.
away.
All right. It's nice. There we go. All right. Jen knitted this hat with love. All you people who can't see it because you're only listening. Anyway, so, what was I saying? Right, okay. The thing I really enjoy about roll and writes more than anything else is that sense of permanence, that real, I'm writing this down. It's got to count. I've got to make sure I get it right. And, that really kind of elevates the experience. But at the same time, it kind of limits it. I feel silly wearing a hat. I'm not used to seeing myself wearing a hat. I'd rather see myself with bad hair. I'm not used to. I mean, I wear a hat when I need one, but it's actually perfectly lovely here at the moment. Yeah. What I can't say it's they need to be heavier because there are certainly heavy roll and writes, and I certainly have some lighter games, like you mentioned. Circle the Wagons makes it in the top 10. What is it? Why can't? Oh, is it Welcome? I think Welcome to the Moon is my current number one, if I recall correctly. Why doesn't Welcome to the Moon get up into like the top 10 or top 20? I'm really hard pressed. It is a feeling. And of course, top 50 when I played, 3,000-4,000 games over the last 10 years is pretty good. Pretty darn good. But I should have thought about this a bit before filming because I am really hard pressed to articulate what it is. I really wish I had thought about this and then unpaused, but I'm trying to be spontaneous, trying to be contemporary. So I was starting to talk about how I really do love the permanence, the finality of actually writing down your answer and having to live with it. Well, of course, there's always erasers, but there's something that just even if you have an eraser, it feels more permanent, it feels more real. But somehow, I'm trying to compare and contrast. Why is there? I guess it does kind of narrow your focus and kind of give you a tunnel vision on what you can actually do, because there are only a finite number of spaces on that piece of paper to activate. I mean, it's really cool the way games roll and writes keep track of money. Oh, I circle the coin, and then when I'm done with it, I cross it out. And I can see there are 200 coins in this game. That's all I can ever have. And that's on one hand cool, but it does kind of maybe expose the design in a way that makes it a little bit less compelling than a game where, oh yeah, I mean, there's infinite money. I mean, you never have to worry about running out. I'm trying to think, is it something to do with that? Something how everything is very on the surface. Maybe that's what it is. I mean, I don't want to disparage roll and writes. I absolutely adore them, but they are very on the surface. Everything is right there in front of you. It's a piece of paper, a pencil, and some dice, or a deck of cards. There's not, I mean, and it's not to say there aren't hidden depths to plumb as you discover, oh, well, this really works well with this, that, or the other thing. But I don't think for the most part, with maybe the exception of Pandoria Merchants, they have the same depth of play as a really crunchy, meaty Euro. That because they are designed to work a certain way. Oh, it's all about these particular combo chains you can create, or those particular combo chains you can create. And really, the randomizer tells you, well, how efficiently can you get to those things? And maybe it's not fair to say that roll and writes don't have the same breadth and depth as the more elaborate counterparts, but it doesn't feel like they do, because again, you can see it all laid out in front of you. I'm literally kind of making this up as I go, but I think maybe that has something to do with it. That its greatest strength also ends up holding it back a little bit from truly upper echelon stuff, at least for my own personal taste. That is my best guess, Shannon. You will have to tell me if that made any sense at all. You then continue. Speaking of roll and writes, Star Trek Super Skill Pinball showed up on Shannon's doorstep lately, and I was curious if the theme is enough to have me give a second try. Oh, definitely. I would love to give this a try. I was happy to see that Lower Decks, yes, Lower Decks, represented in the Star Trek game, so it made Shannon think of me. Yeah, I mean, I definitely want to give it a go. And that was kind of my intent. I reached out to WizKids, but what ended up happening is WizKids ended up sending the Star Trek Super Skill Pinball and the new holiday special to Ruel. And I'm like, okay, because Ruel was super excited about it as well. Super duper excited. Not maybe as much as me, but he loves pinball, whereas I really love Star Trek. I mean, so we kind of even out. And his copy showed up, and I don't know if one's coming to me or not for a review copy. If it is, it's definitely something that I think maybe we would do a live play where he and I both play at the same time, and if people in the audience can play along too, because it is a bingo-y kind of game, isn't it? I think it is, if I recall correctly. It's been a while since I played. But anyway, Ruel showed up. Mine did not. I don't know if one's coming to me or not, or if they just sent it out to Ruel. So my plan was, hey, Ruel, why don't you cover it next week when you cover my second missing live stream, because we are on the road. But since they also sent the holiday special, which of course isn't even out yet, and Ruel did a little straw poll on Twitter, and everybody said, oh, we want to see the holiday special. So the original plan was he was literally going to wear Vulcan ears that he happens to have and do a live stream of that. And it has changed to the holiday special. So when Jen and I get back, which is very, very soon, missing the pups, can't wait to get home, we'll see if it has showed up for me, because I am definitely keen to try it out again. Even if I know probably the problems I had with it will still be there, just that the game length is too long. But we'll see. Shannon then continues. My coming soon mentioned Beer and Bread might make an appearance in October. It did not. I was hoping it was going to arrive, but it did not. Maybe, I mean, I've been gone for a week. A bunch of games generally show up over the course of the week. Maybe it will have shown up. What's it? Who are they? Capstone. Capstone Games said that they were sending it out. And but that was like 2 months ago, and it hasn't shown up yet. So maybe it's not going to show up. I'm still very excited about trying it. You also ask any hope for Village Rails. Yes, that had shown up. I almost brought it on the road with me. Maybe I probably should have. Tiny little box. I'm hoping that will get filmed in November at the very least. Okay, finally. Shannon ends. If I could wish for a magical fairy to pluck one game from Essen, what would it be? Well, let me go back. Let me go to my Rado, or RAHDO 2022 Essen preview. Let's take a look at that. And, right, put it on screen if I can do so. There we go. Alrighty, I'm not actually going to watch the video. I'm just using this as a reference for how I ranked stuff. All right, so I just need to pause this. My internet is a bit fast now, folks. I'm on some Wi-Fi. Oh, yay. All right, I just need to see the show notes. So what did I say my number one? Well, okay, these are all the ones I played. Okay, so the ones I haven't played. Oh, Ottawa. Yeah, and I think so. I think I would probably still stick with the bat-focused farming simulation from Uwe Rosenberg. If I could, this is it. My number one would be Ottawa. My number two would be Joan of Arc. My number three would be Beer and Bread. My number four, it's maybe you missed this, Shannon. I did a countdown, Essen preview. Talked about 20 games, the top 10 that I already played, the top 10 I hadn't played, and yeah, I would take them in this order. I think. I probably would. Okay, so you can check that out. Just do a Google search for Rado Essen 2022 preview. Okay, back to the word. And then you snuck one more question in. Early thoughts on After Us from beyond the gorgeous Vince Dutray art. Let's take a look. Open that in the Chrome. Bring the Chrome back. And what do we got here? Okay, After Us. Oh, right. Yeah, this looks really cool. What did I mark it as? I marked it as like to have. Which means I don't know enough to be excited about it. What the designer Florian Skiriaks. I don't know if I know you, Florian. I have not played any of Florian's games, so I can't be excited. Although he's done several, so that's a good start. But obviously, the Vince Dutray art is gorgeous. Grow a collective intelligence of your monkey tribe faster than your opponents. Basically, the primates rule the earth after humanity died out decades ago. So yeah, I'm excited about it. But as you pointed out correctly, mostly for the Vince Dutray art, which does look absolutely stunning. Stunning. Let's see. Did I miss anything? Nope. Okay, yeah. Okay, cool. What do we... Oh, back to word. I feel like I'm a little bit more scattering. I'm not in my normal comfort zone, folks. I'm just trying to figure this out as I go. Tina says, Tina's understanding is that I prefer Agricola over Caverna because of the fact that Agricola gives you strategy from the start of the game instead of an open sandbox nature of Caverna, where you have the same setup and are reliant on what other players might do. They take a building they were thinking, for example. Yet, I prefer Brass Birmingham over Brass Lancashire, which... for Tina, at least, does what Caverna is in relation to Agricola. Not as strict, more open and easy to manipulate and adapt your strategy, etc. It seems to me that those two comparisons, Agricola would be relative to Lancashire and Caverna, would be relative to Birmingham in the equation. Well, then we're fine. Because yes, I haven't given this any thought, but Tina, I prefer Brass Lancashire to Brass Birmingham. I very much do. And it looks like you're equating the two. Agricola would be relative to Lancashire, as Caverna is to Birmingham. Maybe driven by Tina's own preference. What are my thoughts on the similarities or differences between these twin games? Why do I choose the harder one, Agricola, or the easiest one? Okay, there was a mistake somewhere along the way. We got some cross wires, Tina. I prefer Lancashire over Birmingham. I like Birmingham. Basically, and it's interesting, you're right. What I'm about to say about Brass Birmingham could easily be applied to Caverna relative to Agricola as well. It cranked up the complexity almost to a needless level by adding a bunch more stuff And at the same time, they made the game much more laid back and easy. You don't have to work as hard to accomplish your goals because there's so many ways you can get stuff done. I mean, when I saw Brass Birmingham let you do all these little tricks to say, oh, I don't like these cards. Well, okay, I can ignore the card and do a different thing and stuff like that. Lancashire doesn't let you do that. Lancashire says, these are the cards you got. You, what is it? You don't get to choose the cards you came with to the dance. I messed that up. And I prefer Lancashire because you're like, okay, this is a puzzle. It is not perfect. I got to figure out how to make this work. Whereas Birmingham says, do whatever you want. And at the same time, Birmingham adds all these extra little bits with beer and the way different things work. And that is the reason I like Lancashire over Birmingham. And that's a big part of why I like Agricola over Caverns. Agricola has fewer rules. And yet I think and Agricola is much more harsh and unforgiving. You have to work hard. Caverns just, hey, you want some gems that will just be anything you want, so you can just do anything you want at any time you want? Sure, Caverns is your game. And Caverns wasn't for me. Don't get wrong, Caverns is great. Well, it's a wonderful design, just not what I prefer. And in the same way, you were right. Other than you misunderstood, you thought I preferred Birmingham to Lancashire. I definitely prefer Lancashire to Birmingham. Right, and that's it. We have finished this portion of the show, folks. Now I will see if I can coax Jen out of the other room. Our RV has multiple rooms to do her part of the Q&A. It's been a long day of driving, though, so we might have to pick this up tomorrow. We will see in just a moment. Hang on. We'll be right back. Okay, everybody, welcome back. We've got Jen, but I don't know for how long, so let's get to it. We've got a couple of game questions for you, Honey Pie. Yep. Could you do a voice check, please?
Voice check, please.
All righty. Joseph wonders, have you ever taught a board game to another player?
Yes, I have.
If so, which one, and how was the experience? And if not, how would you go about doing it?
Well, I think it was Glory to Rome.
It was Glory to Rome in an apartment in Athens, Greece.
Yeah. So I have to be in Greece to do it.
That's first thing. Always have to be in Greece.
Yep, clearly. And it was fine. I think I did pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember anything of note about the circumstances?
I remember I liked the game and I wanted to play it, so nobody else knew how to play, so I taught him.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. Do you remember anything about it?
No, I wasn't playing. I was playing a different game.
Yeah, that's why I had to teach it, because you weren't available.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you remember anything about your technique or anything?
Oh, no. First of all, that was at least 8 years ago, 10 years ago.
Yep, and I believe that is the only time you have... No. You have taught people how to play just one at parties, haven't you?
That's true, yes. At Thanksgiving before COVID started, I took just one down and...
To a family Thanksgiving that I was not going to, yeah.
Yep. So there was that. That was very easy to teach, though.
All right, yeah. So, Joseph, there's not many depths to plumb there. But perhaps Nelson will be able to follow up, because I moved his question before. Nelson says, I must have learned and taught thousands of games. Probably.
Yeah.
Nelson thinks that he learns rules just fine by himself, but struggles to teach games well enough so that people can jump in with excitement. Nelson wants to know, how can he get better at teaching game rules? What do I do when I teach new games to Jen? And how did I improve on my game teaching? More context, I recently watched a Shop and Sit Down video where they talked about how to teach board games. I think it's well done. I thought maybe I could also learn a thing or two from teaching games from you. Or if you like, maybe you could do a video on the topic. I don't know if I'm going to do a video on the topic. This is the video on the topic, Nelson. Here we go. Honey Pie, what would you say is my strength? What is my secret sauce for teaching games? I thought this would be something you could talk about since you're on the receiving end of it.
Yeah, I like that you always answer the question, or at least try to, when I have something. Because, as you've said before, when people have a question, their brains can't move on to whatever you're trying to say.
Yes.
Because they don't want to forget their question.
Yeah, it's so easy. I'm in the zone, I'm in the spiel, I'm talking about this and that and the other thing, and somebody asks a question, and you're like, that has absolutely nothing to do with what I'm talking about right now. You have to address that. If you do not address that at that moment in some way, everything you say afterwards is not going to be heard, or it's only going to be half heard because the person is still going to, yeah, but I still don't understand how that one thing worked, even if you know it's unrelated. And the simplest thing is say, you know what, that's an excellent question. That is literally the very next thing we're going to get to. And then change directions and go in that direction. finish what you were doing and then make the next thing answer their question, even if it means, suddenly you're talking about this other system that has nothing to do with where you were, because you have to tailor it to the audience. Now, of course, that is very applicable if it's just two people. It's much tougher if there's a lot of people and somebody stops to ask a question because, you'll be helping them and you'll be hurting everybody else at the table because none of them had that question. They were in the zone with you, and it suddenly is very derailing for them. In the same way, it's derailing for you if you stop and change tact, which again, I think is maybe... I don't know how often I do this with you, Honey Pie, that you ask a question, I say, well, you know what? That's interesting. That's my very next thing I was going to talk about, as I quickly scramble in my brain to rewire how I'm going to talk about everything. Or do I stop and answer your question?
You just stop and answer my question.
Yeah. I think that's something you can only do with one other person. If there are multiple people, you have to say, Bob, excellent question. Hold that thought. We're going to get to it right next. At the very least, something as simple as that could let Bob's brain calm down and focus on what you're saying rather than on what Bob thought Bob had to know at that moment. Anything else, Honey Pie?
Well, quite often if it's a game that's simple or similar to something we've already played, we'll just start playing. You don't give me the whole rules explanation. You just sort of explain it as we're playing. And I like that a lot because sometimes I can't remember everything you've said by the time we get around to playing.
Yep.
So I like that you drip feed me information as needed.
Yes, that's a method that Paul Grogan has done videos about. Paul Grogan of Gaming Rules. Either he's done videos about it or he's talked about it on his podcast. He's developed a method because he has taught hundreds and hundreds of games to people at conventions because he often demos for companies like Czech Games Edition and stuff like that. And the notion that, okay, what is the absolute minimum that somebody needs to know to be able to take their first move? That's all you need to tell them. And answer their questions as it goes. And, let the game evolve. Now, that requires a willing participant. And there are a lot of people out there who refuse to, I can't possibly make a decision until I know every single permutation of every single consequence of every action I take. And you can say, it's just a game. Don't worry about it that much. No, this is everything. I've certainly played with people like that. But if you've got somebody with Jen who's just willing, just ready to sit down and have fun, that's a trick you can do as well. Just the bare bones minimum. What do they need to know? Hey, you got 5 workers. Here's all the different worker placement spots. You got a handful of cards. And you're going to have to, that's always the hardest thing. By far. You can't do it when a game starts you out with draw 7 cards and discard 3.
And also don't show anybody what you got.
And it's a competitive game, so don't you dare let anybody know what you have. That is the worst thing, because under those circumstances, well, okay, then you got to teach them everything because they can't literally make that first decision. You could say, you know what, just go on ahead and pick randomly. But then, that could lead to an actively bad game if it's a game where, I'm supposed to create a combination out of my first cards or whatever. So, that aside, honey, when that can't work, do you have any other suggestions of what I do?
Can I make a small suggestion right now?
Please. Apparently I've still got some room for improvement, Nelson.
No, normally I'm not sitting across the table from you when we're doing this.
Apparently I'm very loud.
You're a little bit loud right now.
Okay.
I'm just, because it's coming right at me.
All right. Yes. If you can't picture, we are sitting at a dinette in an RV. Jen is directly opposite me off camera, and I'm talking directly at her.
Yeah, loudly.
And that's normally she doesn't get the full force Rado treatment.
Thank you. This is already better.
All right. Well, do you have any other observations? I can list more things, but I'm genuinely curious to see what really sticks out to you as the recipient of it, because those are obviously the strongest elements.
Yeah, of course. Well, I think one thing is that often you will set your game aside to help me with mine as I'm learning it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's very kind of you.
Yeah.
And I think it's caused us over the last few years to become very communicative anyway when we're just playing amongst ourselves. So I think that's really nice.
Okay.
I can remember some games where other people have taught me, and about 2/3 of the way through the game, I'm like, hey, you're not sharing all the stuff. You're going to win this because you haven't told us, the things that you would know if you've played this game a few times.
Oh, yeah. There are people that take it too seriously.
Yeah, and they're like, and he's like, I'm going to win.
Don't be one of those people, Nelson.
Yeah. So I think,
sit down assuming you're going to lose. Put your own game to the side. Definitely 100%. So you didn't mention this, so it makes me wonder how impactful it is to you. To me, the number one thing I try to do when teaching games to anybody is finish the work that the developers almost never do in their rule books by contextualizing everything in the game centered around the theme and the setting of the game. I try never to talk about, oh, these are action cards. I try to say, okay, well, if we're merchants in this game, then those are your merchant cards. You know, I mean, that's a simple little thing. It may not sound like much, but anything you can do to make the person not think in terms of how does mechanism X interact with mechanism Y, in phase Z of round
3.
epsilon, which is the way rule books tend to be written, because unfortunately, they all take their inspiration from old war game manuals that were written by frickin' engineers. So we have an entire industry predicated on, hey, let's try to teach everybody as if they were engineers. And that's not how people learn. People learn from stories. That is what humanity has done since the dawn of time. Tell each other stories to, basically contextualize the events of the day and make lessons last. Story problems are important when you are a kid to actually make algebra have any consequence whatsoever, and it's equally true in games. So I try never to talk about, okay, this game's going to last for 4 rounds. Each round has 3 phases. Each phase has these 7 steps. I never do that. I say, okay, this game's going to take 3 years instead of rounds. I don't know why publishers do. I mean, or 3 decades, or 3 ages, or 3 millennia, because instantly that makes the player start thinking in real world terms as opposed to just weird abstracted random stuff. And then another thing I do that I think is hugely important, and maybe Jen didn't point it out, so if the game comes with a player aid, I walk her through that player aid. I use that as the overall structure. So here's how your turn is going to work. Here's one thing that I fundamentally disagree with Tom Vassell and Shut Up and Sit Down guys, where they all say, first thing you have to do is teach people how to win the game. No. That is so wrong. That is so bass-ackwards. That is so cart before the horse. People, if you're a really hardcore super nerd geek, maybe. If you're an engineer, maybe. But if you're a human being who's just sat down to the table to have fun with their friends and family, they're not thinking about, right, I must know how to win. No. What they need to know is, what do I do on my turn? When it's not my turn, I don't have to pay attention because you're probably going to take care of all that for me. Just tell me how my turn works. And tell it to me in the context of the greater game. Okay, so we're going to play this game for 4 years, Honey Pie. And every year, you're going to get to take 3 turns. And here's how a turn works.
Yep.
And then I literally walk through them on the piece of paper. I think that's really important because it means later on, when Jen inevitably doesn't remember something, she has that anchor.
Yeah.
Do you use that anchor? Do you say, that's step 2. Yeah, I remember him talking about that.
Yeah,
right?
Sometimes I don't pay as much attention the first time you go through it,
yeah.
But I like knowing where it is. And then once we're playing, I can refer back to it or ask you about, action 3B7.
Yeah.
Or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The reality is, you know how you win every game? Score the most points. It is superfluous to actually go into, and if you don't need to tell them that, hey, whoever scores the most victory points wins. Here's the 17 ways you score victory points. Here's everything you can get points for at the end of the game. That is ridiculous. That is front-loading a lot of information that means nothing to a person when all they want to know is, right, how do I take my turn?
Yeah.
It's so wrong. So wrong. It is much more important to try to think in terms of somebody who doesn't understand this game at all. What do I need to know to be able to move forward in this game? What do I need to know? What is the absolute minimum I need to know to make me feel like I am smart? To make me feel like I'm making clever, informed decisions. And knowing everything about the game. Knowing that, oh, by the way, every coin you have left over at the end of the game is worth 33% of a point. That is meaningless and inconsequential dribble. And if you front load a bunch of stuff like that, which a lot of rule books do these days. It's getting worse and worse, and games are getting harder and harder to learn because people feel obligated to read this. Here's the key concepts you need to know. There's one key concept I need to know. How does my turn work? Number 2 key concept. How does the overall structure of the game work? Number 3 concept, Number 1, who am I? Where am I? When am I? What are we here to do? That sounds like, describe the victory points. No. Tell the story of what we're trying to do. We're trying to build a railroad. We are trying to connect the East and the West of Americas. And yes, I could then spend 10 minutes talking about how money is worth points and stuff like that. But that's all you need to know. That's what we're here to do. That creates a context, a scaffolding that everything that comes after can stand on top of. You are a rich magnate. You are a business person. You are trying to get the most fame and glory by contributing to this the most. That's all you need to know. Then, okay, this game is going to take place over 10 years, which is, 10 rounds. Each round, everybody's going to get 1 turn. So you're going to get 10 turns in this game. Here's how a turn works. Now, another thing I do, I will often literally play I will always be first player. And as I'm explaining this, I am literally taking my first turn. So it's not abstracted. It's there in front. Jen can see the consequences of the actions. And so that when she gets around, it's like she's gone on a ride, and so she's in a better place to do it too. So I think that's really important also.
Yes, I agree.
All right, anything else?
I think you've covered a lot of the good stuff.
Then if not, we are done with the game portion of this show, folks. And which means we're about to go into the personal stuff, unless we're about to go ride e-bikes with our hosts here at Boondockers Welcome. They've got some e-bikes. We picked this thing up. Oh, no, that's not game stuff. That's RV stuff. If you have any RV questions, folks, please send them to questions@rado.com.
Or RV tips.
Or RV tips, too. Thank you.
Send that to rvtips@rado.com.
Don't do that. Unfortunately, we switched email servers, so now I don't automatically get every single email. It used to be, folks, you could say, bubkus muskupkus @rado.com and I'd get it. But now I actually have to create the email addresses manually. So do not send anything to rvtrips@rado.com because that doesn't exist. Send your RV tips to questions@rado.com or your RV questions. But at this point, you really send your game-related questions because I assume some of you are going to bow out now because we are about to move on to the personal stuff right after this. Okay, everybody. It's time for the personal question and answer portion now. And first of all, let me tell you, e-bikes are freaking awesome. How did we go this long not knowing how much fun they are? Man, goodness, that was fun. Anyway.
And makes you feel like a stud muffin.
Oh, yeah, just very nonchalantly going up hills like you're all that. So, had fun with that, but we're now going to finish this podcast so I can edit it on the road tomorrow as we head home. So, honey, are you ready?
Yes.
All right, first question is from Ben. By now, I think you'll have probably gone on your inaugural RV trip. Hope you had a great time. How did it go?
Oh, well, we are not quite done yet, but I think we're so close we might as well say it was a raving success.
Yes.
Really, really good. Had a great time. The RV performed fantastically.
Yeah.
Very comfortable. I wish we'd had more time. I think we just didn't allow enough
we
time.
broke the first rule of RVing. The 3-3-3 rule. Don't travel more than 300 miles in a day. Don't drive for more than 3 hours at a time. And get where you're going by 3 p.m., which are all just designed, of course, to maximize your relaxation and just, and we were driving 4 to 6 hours a day, getting in, rolling into places at 6 o'clock.
Just before sunset.
Yeah.
Trying to settle in and...
It's been a bit stressful, but as Jen said, hugely successful. We the main battery died on us once, which we were very shocked by because we apparently left the headlights on for too long, and by too long we mean like 15 minutes. The main battery might need to be replaced, but fortunately we had bought new house batteries, and the thing has a battery backup. So if your main battery dies, you use your house batteries to start your engine. So that was fine. We were driving up the California and Oregon coast. And we had been warned, you don't want to start out that way. And we're like, well, we can handle it. We can totally handle it. And we did handle it, but it was a terrible mistake.
Yes.
Highway 101 has been great in the portion of it we saw in California and here in Oregon. But Highway 1, oh my gosh, that gets so incredibly insane. We had must have been close to 2 hours of just complete and total white knuckle going through the most Byzantine, ridiculous, windy roads where the road was only a car and a half wide and we are a car and a half wide. Absolutely terrifying. I drove the whole thing, and when we finally got through it, Jen took over and she said she could feel the sweat on the steering wheel. Which so
was that yesterday?
No, that was 2 days ago.
2 days ago.
Yes.
So I did the first white knuckle part, which was
Yes.
getting over to Fort Bragg from Highway 101.
Yes, and that was rough. We both thought, oh my God, this is terrible.
Yeah.
But Jen was a trooper and just got through it.
Yep.
Just said, shut up. I'm focusing here.
Well, I didn't say that.
Yeah.
But I take everything slowly.
Yes.
So we done that in the morning. We hung out at Fort Bragg. We went and got some beach glass off of Glass Beach, and just enjoyed being there. Had the local burgers and stuff. And then we headed out, and we only had, what was it, 3 hours or something still driving?
We left around 2 and we realized, oh crap, it's going to be 3 hours where we said we were going to be. Crap.
And you're supposed
and we have to get there by 6.
Yeah.
And so it was a relatively stressful situation, and then that's when we were thrown into the true gauntlet. So that was rough. And we have decided, we're not doing roads like that anymore. We can do it. We did it once, never again. We stayed at a vineyard parking lot. We stayed out in the middle of a
field
of a farm field right next to a corn maze. We last night just slept on the side of the road overlooking beautiful. We were in Oregon by that point. Oh my
gosh, beautiful beach.
Yeah, although that was, it was, there was an expert there. We weren't sure what the rules are for just parking along the side of the road, and he said, well, actually, you can't. Because there's all these no camping signs. We were like, so we can't camp, and they said, oh no, you can't camp, but you can park. Camping is apparently as soon as you take something out of the car, you put a chair down, you're camping outside. You just park, you're parking, and that's fine. So we did that one night, and it was amazing to see the sunset and the sunrise and all that. But it was a very busy road, and I'm glad I had my earplugs. I don't know how Jen slept through the night.
Partially.
Yes. And then tonight we're staying at it's called Boondockers Welcome. It's this service. It's basically kind of like Uber, except for instead of turning your car into a taxi for people, you can turn your driveway into an RV parking lot for people. And so we are staying at one of those, and we just spent, they let us ride their e-bikes around, and they just chatted with us about their travels in Europe. And so it's been excellent. Tomorrow morning we take off and have to get to, once again, we've given ourselves a deadline. We're not supposed to do that.
Yes.
We broke all the rules of our first trip, but we're learning so many things. But we have to get to, not Eugene, Salem by 10 a.m., to see Jen's folks so they can see it. And then we get home in the early afternoon. Hopefully we'll avoid all the Portland really bad traffic, and we'll have our dogs, and then we'll start planning our next trip. So that's how it's gone so far.
Yes.
Did I miss any? Is that good?
No, I think you've got, we saw wonderful, beautiful things, and we've enjoyed being on the road. Yeah, we just don't want to be on those really windy roads.
Never again.
Yeah. Well,
no,
not never again.
Oh.
Certainly not 2 in one day.
Yeah. It was
with a deadline.
It was crazy. Okay, let's see. Next up, honey, you're gonna have to get up because Chris says, I saw this ad in my paper, the local New York Times, and I thought you'd enjoy it. The spokesman for this watch brand looks very much like you, and the brand name is very close.
Oh.
So you can come over here.
Okay.
It's Rado, Master of Materials.
Rado.
R-A-D-O, and he's a bit of a silver fox, much more so than me, I imagine. Let me see if I can pull it off there, folks. I don't know. You tell me, folks. Those who can see it, as opposed to those who can hear it. It's a very handsome man with silver beard and silver hair, selling a Rado watch. All right, small world.
Cute.
Okay, Joseph says, many times on the show, you have cried when talking about various topics. I am curious if you've always been prone to crying or if this behavior started when you got older. In my case, I've noticed I was less susceptible to tearing up when I was younger, but now cry when I hear certain news stories or touching moments in fiction. Is Jen the same way? I think I've always been this way. I don't think this is something new. I'm pretty sure I cried when the Death Star got blown up in 1977 when I saw it as a little kid in the theater. I'm just predisposed to, tears of joy. I feel sorrow very strong and very deep on behalf of other fictional characters. Moments of self-sacrifice really move me and always have. I remember in high school trying to be kind of cool about it and not letting it happen. But yeah, I think I always have. I've always been that way.
Oh, I know I have gotten much more weepy since my mom's died.
Mm.
Yeah. I think I feel much more keenly the passage of time, and that we're all here for a very short amount of time. Yeah. So, like I saw, why can I not think of the name of the play I just saw? The singing one?
Hamilton.
Hamilton, thank you. First time I saw it, I thought, wow, that was a great play. Second time I saw it...
When you saw it on Disney+.
Yeah.
But then you saw it in person
I
in
saw
London.
it in London, yeah. And I cried, about his... Oh, yeah, I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but yeah. So I think I'm just...
You're getting older. Yep. Me, I've always been this way. I couldn't tell you why. Brain chemistry is weird. Halloween is coming soon. I know neither of you is particularly fond of horror, but I'm curious what your favorite spooky or creepy movie or TV show is. Can you think of any, honey?
Well, probably the whole Harry Potter franchise is a bit spooky and creepy.
Okay.
In some ways.
Sure.
I think if I had to guess for you, it would be the Tim Burton.
Nightmare Before Christmas?
Yes.
I do really like Nightmare Before Christmas quite a bit.
I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I...
Nothing?
Beetlejuice springs to mind, but only because it's so... I don't know. That's probably all I've got.
Okay.
Honestly.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I'm not adverse to horror. I used to watch a fair bit, but...
I definitely am not into horror.
Yeah.
I do not need any of that in my life, in my brain. No.
I mean, I don't know if you consider the James Cameron's Aliens a horror film. It's not. It's an action film. Alien is good, but probably, what do you call it? Paranormal behavior? Paranormal...
X-Files.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you like the X-Files? There you go. That sometimes got very creepy. That's good. That's a good one. I don't think you'd like X-Files now. I don't think you...
Not.
Yeah, in your 20s.
No, but it did used to have David Duchovny in it.
Yes, it did. Most of the time.
Which was a good thing.
But yeah, Paranormal Activity. Every one of those. Start playing that low rumbly bass and you know something's coming, and I am just on the edge of my seat, and I love every second of it. I really, really like those found footage type things. And Blair Witch Project, which of course got the whole thing kicked off. I mean, I'm always a sucker for found footage of any sort. And of course it tends, maybe it's just because it started with Blair Witch Project that you see a lot of horror films doing it. Plus horror film is traditionally low budget, and that's the best way. That's about as low budget as you can get. So yeah, but Paranormal Activity, all of them. I mean, it started really going off the rails by the time the fifth one came out, but I watched them all. And they still, no matter how bad they still got me. Alrighty, Joseph is curious how Jen became a professional glass blower. Judging from my Sagrada Artisans run-through, Jen is a very talented artist. What made you focus on glass as your medium?
I've always loved glass. I always thought when I was younger that I would maybe do some stained glass or something when I got older, because a friend of mine, her mom, did stained glass. And I thought, oh, that's so cool. And when we were living in Austin, Texas, I was at a street fair one day, and I saw a lady who'd made this amazing, gorgeous dichroic glass jewelry. And I was so complimentary to her. She said, hey, I've got a little portable kiln. Why don't you invite some girlfriends over and we'll melt some glass and we'll have some fun and probably drink some wine. And I did that. And by the end of the evening, I was like, okay, how do I order my kiln? Where do I buy the glass? How do I get into this? And that's where it started back in 2000.
Now, prior to that, you were a professional graphic designer.
Yep.
That is, she went to University of Washington, learned how to cut and paste stuff the old-fashioned way.
Yep.
Was making websites, back at the dawn of what we now think of as the internet for small companies. Developed a clientele list. Continued to do that kind of work when we moved to Texas. But then you just pretty much overnight said, "Okay, this is done.
Well,
I am done with this job."
No, I had started a business in Bend doing graphic design.
Yes.
And when we moved to Texas, there was only 2-hour time difference, and that was fine. But then when we moved to England, it was too big of a time difference, and that's when I decided to focus on the glass.
Oh, I would have thought you were doing full-time glass in Texas, too.
No, I was... So the lady who taught me my first class, her name was Gail Stouffer. She said, I used to be a graphic designer, too.
Ah, yes, the sales pitch.
Oh, really? And she says, yes, so the really good... Okay, so she didn't even know me yet, but she hit my efficiency buttons. And she said, so what you do is you get up in the morning and you go out and you do glass for a few hours because the kiln has to heat up. and melt the glass flat, and then it'll cool down, and then you can do, like you can cut into it or grind it or whatever, or you can reform it over a bowl shape, or make it into a bowl or whatever. Anyway, it takes time for the kiln to do that. So while the kiln is heating up and cooling down, you can do your graphic design stuff. And I'm like, oh, I can work double time and be really efficient. This is awesome.
Yeah, Jen had no idea at that point what a Eurogame was, but she is a Eurogamer through and through. It's all about maximizing peak efficiency in all ways, at all times.
Yeah, but I've got to stop doing that because now I'm in a different phase of my life and I don't have to be super efficient.
Yeah.
But so that's how I got into it. Just a nice lady who shared her passion in her craft with me. And so that was kiln formed glass. Duck actually bought me a torch and some stuff to do lamp working. Was it my first year of glass making or my second year?
It was probably the second year. And I didn't know what to get you. And I called Gail and said, hey, what can I get her for glass work that she hasn't done yet? Because she's kind of like your mentor. And she suggests, oh, yeah, I bet you she'll really love this. And so got all the glass, what do you call it?
The torch and the rods.
What you said there's kiln form. What do you do now?
Lamp working.
Lamp working. And she said she'll love it. And Jen said, oh, that's so nice. Thank you so much. And then she promptly put it in mothballs for 6 years.
No, I pretty much took it all back to Gail.
Oh, did you? I didn't realize that. You literally returned it?
Yep.
Oh, my gosh. I had no idea.
Sorry. But at that time, it was a distraction. I was really having fun with the kiln form glass, and I didn't know why I would stop doing that. And then when we moved to Malta, I didn't want to take all my tons of sheet glass and my big kiln and everything to Malta because we thought we'd be there a year or two.
Yeah.
So I took my lamp working stuff, which I still had a little bit of, and I've been doing that for 10 years now. Love it.
All right. Moving right along, Nelson says, you may have talked about this already, but how did the RV become part of yours and Jen's life? What places do you have plans to take it to?
Well, the biggest trip we've got planned is going to be in Utah, and I think I'd like to go spend a month, maybe in sort of, oh God, now I can't think of the name of the place. Moab, thank you. In the Moab region, and just see what it's like to live in a motorhome for that long and be out trekking and hiking and biking and take the puppies out with us. And yeah, I mean, I've really been inspired by that area for a long time. The pictures I've seen of it are just incredible. So I'd like to spend some time there. So we think maybe April we might do that.
Well, another thing we've just been talking about over the last couple of days is we've gone to the Dice Tower West Convention in Vegas and the Board Game Geek Convention in Dallas for the last few years. And Jen has had a table and she sold her glass there, and I just sit down and play games with people, and it's all been fun. But we've kind of gotten to the point where we're so sick and tired of airfare and jumping through all the hoops, and it's just so annoying.
Well, plus the last time we were there, we ended up getting our flight was
exactly. Yeah, we had such a terrible, horrible. We were kind of I just don't know if we want to do this anymore. The airfare is just horrible. The flight, the act of flying is just so gosh awful. And then it occurred to me, well, we could drive there now.
Yeah,
we could totally drive. I mean, so that might be something we do too. That we need to, when we get home, look into. Well, I'm sure people would take RVs to Vegas all the time, and there must be some place you can park, and they must make it easy for you to get to the casinos, because of course that's what they want to do. They want all those aging snowbirds to burn all their cash and then drive back wherever they came from and then come back in another season. And so that might be something we mess around with too. But the other thing is, Jen and I, we lived our 20s, or really our teens and 20s in the Pacific Northwest. We both met at the University of Washington. We have both seen so little of the Pacific Northwest. There's so little we've been to. We just spent all our time in in Seattle, and when we were in high school, and I was in Belfair, and she was in Cheney. Yeah. So I mean, we were thinking, well, we could start doing like long weekend type things just to see all the stuff that there is to see in our home state and the surrounding environments, and British Columbia and stuff like that. So probably little trips like that. Jen wants to do this big trip or medium trip, I guess, for a month down to Utah, and maybe swing by Vegas as well. Maybe work those in together somehow. And Jen could sell some glass and I'll play some games in February. I haven't even, this is the first we're announcing it because a lot of people ask. I said, yeah, we're probably not doing it anytime soon because we're just so sick of flying. But we have a new method of transportation now.
Yep. And we can take the pups.
Yep. How did RVing become part of our life, Honey Pie?
Oh, well, we have...
This is on you. I mean, this was never something that was on my list of lifelong, goals. I grew up on a boat, so to me, this is old hat. Living in a tight, having the special considerations for the toilet and all that kind of stuff. For me, it's just normal because so much of my formative years were spent living this way. But Jen it's always been your dream to get an RV and see the world.
Yeah, well, my parents did that. They sold their house, when I was about 25, I think, something like that. They sold the whole thing, everything, and they just hit the road. And they did that for about 20 years. Mm-hmm. They tried different kinds of, like RVs. They had different sizes and stuff like that. But it was just when we moved back. To the year that we moved back to the States, they sold their final RV, and we're like, we're too late.
What were you thinking?
I wanted
that you wanted to get an RV and caravan with them?
Not necessarily caravan, but meet up and do stuff together, and then maybe go off on.
I was unaware that was kind of your thinking.
Yeah, I was hoping. Yeah.
Okay.
Would have been nice to. My dad's an avid fly fisherman, so it would have been really nice to meet them. In Idaho on some of his favorite streams and fish with him and that sort of thing. And Nancy at one time had a goal to go to every one of the state capitals. And I don't think...
Oh, really?
Yeah, and they did quite a few of them when they were doing this time that they were RVing, but I don't think she got to every single one of them. So it's just, I guess, something always... But I just really like to travel in my own way. I like to travel at my pace, and I like to have my dogs with me, and I like to be able to cook my breakfast in the morning. So I think it's always been in the works for me.
Yeah, I mean, this dream of hers that she's always had, I guess really inspired by your parents mostly, is why we're here today, why you're listening to this today. Because at first we were going to do this in Europe. We got the camper van, the Bongo. We were going to drive all over Europe. We were going to get a pull behind, and that was going to be the dream. And then I ended up getting the job in Malta, and we went a completely different way, of course. But we did do a couple of Bongo trips to Mont Saint Michel and France and stuff like that, and because
we went to Prague.
Went to Prague.
Went to Essen.
Went to Essen Spiel. Drove from England to Essen and back. And the first time we were going out, I was like, well, "What are we gonna do? We can't play video games. And it's gonna be too. What are we just gonna read? This was before mobile data was ubiquitous. I mean, we won't have the. I'm like, well, I guess I could pick up a copy of Travel Scrabble. We're literally gonna be traveling. It'll be like back when I was a kid living on the boat, and that's how we found Pandemic, and that's what led to all this. Alrighty. Olivier says, this is a follow-up from last month. Could the mystery Sam that Jen was driving her nuts who's the cowboy named Sam? Could it be Sam Neill? His character looks like a cowboy in Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
And you included a picture, and I will load the picture, and I will zoom in the picture, and I will show Jen the picture, or she can get up and come look at the picture.
I just Googled Sam Neill over here online, but yes, I'm sure that's who it is. Yep, Sam Neill, cowboy guy.
Yeah, that's a total cowboy right there. That is not a
that is cowboy
paleontologist at all. Trying to...
Well, it's not totally a cowboy hat, but it's close enough.
Mm-hmm. Alrighty, there you go.
Thank you.
You got it, Olivier. It never would have occurred to me in a million years. She was so determined. It was a cowboy. Or he was a cowboy. I don't even remember how it came up. Oh, it was talking about Sam Harris, and what did Jen think? And Jen didn't know who it was. Was he the cowboy? Alright, anyway. So... that is that, and now it's time for Jen's Words of Wisdom.
You see that picture of Sam Neill?
Yes, Jen has just looked up another picture of Sam Neill. Is that also?
Yeah.
Yes, that is Sam Neill as a paleontologist. Yeah,
but he looks very cowboyish. Look at, including the bandana.
He is wearing a bandana. Anyway, Jen has some Words of Wisdom from Jane Goodall. Do you have it in front of you? You're going to read it, or do you want to make me read it?
You read it.
All right. Jane Goodall says, you cannot get through a single day without having an impact on the world around you. What you do makes a difference. And you have to decide what kind of difference you want to make. Okay, there you go. That's very wise of Miss Goodall. Okay, and then finally, of course...
dog pictures.
There's dog pictures. So Jen's going to come back over. And Paul says, here's part of an email I never thought I'd write. I'm a 50-year-old, and apart from my childhood, I never had a pet, and I never wanted a dog for sure. The idea of picking up dog poo and all that walking put me off it, and it was something I was adamant on, whenever the topic came up. I've always thought I'd be a poor dog owner. Ironically, I foster 2 children who are doubly incontinent and need hands-on personal care, and I'm totally fine with all that. A little dog poop, however, really tests me. It makes no sense. All right. Anyway, something must have shifted inside my psyche. Maybe hearing you and Jen talking so positively about your journey with dogs. And at the beginning of this year, we went out and got a dog. And it was under my motivation. We have a little Whippet / Beddington cross.
I can't wait to see
and
this.
everything changed.
I want to see.
Oh, after there's more words. Ha ha! You must wait. I do the walks. I pick up the poo. I'm still not good at it. I really am glad she's in my life. Trying to train her and learning each other's ways to interact, developing new routines has really opened me up to this new bond everyone else has known about for years. We're even at the early stages of talking about a second dog. Pictures included are of, how would you say that? Tilly?
I don't know.
Audley?
I don't know.
And when she was 9 weeks old and taken, one was 9 weeks and one was taken today, February 30th of September. All righty, here we go.
Friday, 30th of September, not February.
Yes, I don't know why I said that.
Oh.
That's a little cutie patootie. Hello.
Oh, she's
I got the
very
big eyes.
sweet. So, a Bedlington Whippet mix.
Yep. What's a do you know what Bedlington is?
I think the Bedlington, isn't that the Star Wars dogs?
I don't know what the Star Wars dogs are.
That have the funny shaped face? Well, look up Bedlington Terrier.
All right. All righty. We need to look up Bedlington Terrier. Let me, all right. How do I get
Obviously, Whippet.
I need to come
totally
back.
See the Whippet there.
Yeah. No, Whippet. The Whippet definitely comes through. Bedlington
Well, you better do that.
Terrier. Google will figure it out.
Okay.
All righty. So,
yeah.
Oh, those things. I was unaware those were referred to as the Star Wars dogs.
Don't those look just like those?
You mean like the AT-ATs in Empire Strikes Back?
Yeah.
Okay, I can see that. So it's half this and half Whippet, which is little baby greyhounds. Well, that is a very cool and very unique dog, I must say, and adorable. And I am so happy for you that you finally made the plunge. You made the right choice, and your life will be forever enriched from now on.
Okay, but send us an email and tell us how to pronounce her name.
Yes, because we do not understand. But anyway, so sadly, that was the only dog picture, Honey Pie.
Well, it's a good one.
It's an excellent one. Thank you. And a great story, too.
Yay.
That's fantastic. And then finally, here we are at the end. We have a spoiler question from Paul. This has to do with Spider-Man No Way Home. Somebody followed up and wanted to hear what I actually had to say, spoilery, for Spider-Man. I'm actually not asking you this to hear you cry, Richard. But you piqued my interest when you started to say Spider-Man No Way Home was Peter's origin story. If you could expand on that in the spoiler section, that would be awesome. Equally, though, if you feel like you get too emotional, I'm going to play it cool. I am going to be a cool cucumber. What I meant by that, of course, is that we just took it for granted in Civil War when Spider-Man was first introduced to the MCU that, of course, yeah, he had the Uncle Ben. Great power, great responsibility, and all of that. And, they're just skipping over it this time because we've seen it so many times. Unlike the Batman movies, they have to keep doing it every single time. And there were hints of it in his Uncle Ben's initials are on his luggage in Far From Home and all of that. But, and he says a line kind of like, with great power comes great responsibility, when he first meets Tony Stark. And I thought, it's just fast forwarded. But no, it's No Way Home with the death of Aunt May. And it's Aunt May who says, with great power comes... And she actually says it the verbatim way it was originally said in the comics, which is kind of a mouthful, but Marissa Tomei is so amazing as an actress, she really sold it. And because, Peter was a good kid, and he was a good hero, but there was no real evidence of the sacrifices that define the Spider-Man Peter Parker mythos. And it really came to a head here when he lost his aunt, not his uncle. And she was given the famous line. And I said I wasn't going to cry, and I'm not going to cry. I'm going to play it cool. I'm going to get a drink of water. And basically that's what I'm referring to. Because, of course, at the end of that movie, it springboards into what we really think of as Spider-Man, the young, independent man in New York completely dirt poor, trying to get by. The high school years of Amazing Spider-Man, they were really important and very formative, to the overall mythos, but they are such a small portion of what, makes the Spider-Man canon. And it's all we've had so far. And I felt like at the end of No Way Home that, oh my God, it's really starting now. And I hope it continues going, because I obviously love it. But basically I was referring to that. Basically, the role reversal for Uncle Ben versus, Aunt May. And that is it, folks. And we are doneville with another Rado Talks Through, episode 89, on the road. As you can see, it is very late. Or it's very dark. It's actually not that late. It's only 7:30. So we might watch a show now on the TV up there, because we're actually on external power this time. So we're not worried about that TV running out our house batteries. And then we'll have a good night's sleep, and we'll hit the road tomorrow, and we'll have our dogs tomorrow afternoon, and we'll see what comes next. As always, folks, thank you very much for listening. And send those questions to questions@rado.com, and Jen and I will be back next month with episode 90. Oh my gosh, we're coming up on episode 100. Jeez Louise. Anyway, thanks for listening, everybody. Talk to you later. So long.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.